Hey, what's up guys, Mashin here, come back with a full case rundown for you. Every month and a half to 2 months, we like to do this. Now first up, obviously I have my own investments. You can always check that down in the description below, but let's hop on into it. Now the first question is, should you be buying right now? And honestly, when we look at a lot of rare case prices, we're seeing almost 3-month lows. Obviously, it may not be the most ideal time, but it's definitely one of the times where you should at least think about buying in, at least in my opinion, based off everything we're gonna look at and everything you're seeing right now. The sponsor for today's video is SkinSwap. Now SkinSwap is the premier place for CSGO skins and Rust skins. They've got a trading feature with highly competitive rates. They've got a super easy to use selling feature. And if you're looking to deposit today, you're going to be getting a 40% bonus on your deposit. And the best thing, if you sign up with the link in the description, you're going to be getting a free case worth up to $150. So what are you waiting for? Join today and fill all of your CSGO skin needs. However, first we got to talk about the cases you need to avoid. Now most of these are going to be quite obvious. The first of which are going to be your really expensive cases. These cases right here are significantly more expensive than we want to go into as an investment, just because we're looking for a return percentage and not a return in dollars. See, one of these might gain $15–20 in a month, but that really is only equating to 15%, when we could see some of the more optimal cases can return significantly more than that in 1 month, and it's a lot easier for them to do so. To go along with that, one of the arguments you see with some of these older cases is that people say they're just much more stable. If we want to look at them now, a decent amount of them are down, and even the ones that are performing the best are about break even, which really isn't that good. Although the whole case market is down a little bit more than that, they're still not doing extremely well, which is one of the reasons, if the only reason, I think you might want to pick these up. I don't see a lot of opportunity here, and I would suggest you look at other pathways. But one of the pathways I still tell you to avoid is the active duty cases. These cases right now are on a downfall, and if we talk about the data we showed in a previous video, they're most likely going to continue on that downfall. That's because these cases are being dropped a significant amount. In fact, they're being dropped much more than they're being open. All of them at this point most likely are not going to recover unless we see a huge case hype, and at this point I really don't see that being too likely. Case unboxing numbers are quite down compared to what we've seen. It's the lowest since February of this year. That's about 5 months ago. This is the lowest time, and therefore I really don't see a lot of opportunity in active duty cases either. You can obviously go for it, and if you do, you're probably only going to look at the snakebite or the fracture case, but those in my opinion still have a ways to drop. If we want to look at a 6-month period, they're still having a lot of potential to get cheaper, at least in my mind. But finally getting into the cases we want to see. Now the first two I'm going to group together, and those are going to be your Prisma 1 and your Prisma 2. Now if we want to look at these cases, they sit relatively similar on the surface. However, there is a winner out of these two. If we want to look at ROI, the Prisma 1 barely edges out the Prisma 2, but this is honestly a very minimal amount, and honestly I don't think it's too big of a deal. Looking at unboxing numbers, you can see that the Prisma case is slacking a little bit behind the Prisma 2 case by about 350,000 cases unboxed in the past 30 days, which is a decent amount. Don't get me wrong, that's honestly more than some of these other cases have been unboxed the whole month. But that specifically shouldn't be the only reason that you potentially turned off from the Prisma for the Prisma 2. That's because I want to point you to a chart I've never shown you before right here. This is basically an estimation by someone who has a lot of data about potentially how many cases are out there, and the numbers themselves I don't want to say are too relevant, but if you look at it, the Prisma 2 is far outpacing the Prisma 1 in how fast it's going down. Therefore, in my opinion, with all that coming together, I say the Prisma 2 is the winner out of these two, although I still think the Prisma is definitely a solid investment. Now the next case you might potentially be thinking about is the Danger Zone case, and this one's got a very strong record. If we want to look at the Danger Zone case, it is pretty much battling the Clutch case for being the #1 most unboxed case in the past 30 days, and this has been a consistent battle. Looking at another graph I've never shown you before, this is the amount opened minus the amount dropped, and as you can see, the Danger Zone currently is sitting at potentially the biggest margin between them. It kind of is a little bit blurry at the end there. Now this is another graph that shows the exact same thing. This one is basically the amount dropped minus the amount opened, with everything starting at 0 to help give you a baseline of over the past 19 months what has been the most in demand minus the amount dropped. And as we can see, the Danger Zone case is in the biggest deficit at almost 20 million cases over the past 19 months. And finally, the last cheap case that I would potentially be thinking about is the Clutch case. I mean, it's the one that's coming up the most often, and honestly, it's at a really good price point right now in my opinion. If we want to look at the 6th month of the clutch case, you can see that this one gets swept up the most by hype, and that's just because everyone wants to unbox this. Now obviously we have the Revolution case now, which definitely does eat into some of the clutch case unboxings, but the clutch case is still so iconic. It's still the most unboxed rare case, and at this point I really don't see anything changing on that front. And our graphs once again show that exact same formula. As you can see here, the clutch case is just barely losing to the danger zone, although the danger zone has quite a bit of a head start. We might see that one actually be overtaken, and looking at this graph, they're about the same, as it once again gets a little bit blurry in that area. Now looking at the cases in the mid tier that I would potentially think about investing into, the first one's got to be the Spectrum 2 case. Currently it is the most unboxed when I consider the rare cases that are in the mid tier, and when we look at this data right here, you can see that it is currently almost rivaling the cases that we just previously talked about, which are cheap cases and usually get unboxed significantly more. Combine that with the fact that the Spectrum 2 most likely has one of the most consistent demands all across the board. That's because the people opening this up are doing so for one reason. That's because they're trying to get the Butterfly Ruby, the Butterfly Sapphire, two very expensive knives that are in this case. This case is going to get more and more expensive, but these people are going for a knife that's $10,000, $12,000. They're not too worried about the 20 or 30 cents extra it's going to be costing them. To go along with that, I've got 3 more cases I'm going to run through. The first of which is the Chroma 3 case. Very similar explanation here. The skins inside of it are not good, but the Chroma knives are very desirable, especially if we see an operation where we see the Chroma finishes on Shattered Web knives. The Chroma knives themselves most likely are going to be receiving a little bit of hype, and I think that's something that could benefit that. After that, you've got the Gamma 2 case, which is a very similar situation. The Gamma knives are very respected and they're very expensive, very straightforward. And lastly, you've got the Revolver case, which once again is quite straightforward. It's got the chance to give you the $1.5 million Brule Gem, and it's the cheapest option to do so. It's one that has got a lot of hype around it for people who are participating in the hobby. Now, if you're one person that's trying to invest into the Breakout cases or the Phoenix cases or the Glove cases, you can definitely do that, but in my opinion, I think you're better off looking at some of the cheaper options and trying to profit there. These cases are just way too expensive for you to make a significant percentage profit unless they go up to like $100 a piece. Therefore, in my opinion, I would personally not be investing into them, but if you want to pick up a couple as a diversification purpose, I think there's definitely a reason to do so. Now, talking about discontinued cases, I'm going to exclude the esports ones because they're stupid, but if we're talking about the Riptide, the Broken Fang, and the Shattered Web case, these 3 have a lot of potential moving forward. The problem is they're just way too expensive in their current state. I like cases that have a lot of potential, and I see potential with all 3 of these cases, but I also see that price point, and it is way too massive for me to personally be picking up some of these at this point, but I can definitely see if you wanted to do that, like I just previously mentioned with the older cases that are a little bit more expensive, it's definitely there. And looking at the prices right now, it actually might be an okay time to pick up some of these. But in my opinion, I'm after a little bit more of that long-term profit, and these ones just really don't cut it for me. Now, with everything, make sure you're doing your own research and not just taking what I say at face value. But that's all I got. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day.